2, 3, 5. Excellent. Welcome. Thanks for giving up a chunk of a summer evening. But we have some timely things at 7:14. I'll call the meeting of the Cohasset Advisory Committee to order and call the roll. Gina Stino.
Present.
Fran Collins.
Present.
And Diane Kennedy.
Present happily.
Mary McGoldrick.
Present.
And Rob Hillman, I am present. So that's 5. Our bylaw requires 5 for a quorum. So we are go. Just pulling up our agenda for this evening. I suppose it goes without saying that we very much welcome Diane to take the, I don't think you're taking Patrick's actual seat, but I think there is, a Kennedy seat now established on this committee. So you should call the boys and tell them, to get ready when the time comes. We'll be calling. We'll address this a little bit later on, but we are down 2 members. So I'm working with the oddly named committee, the Troika, to fill us up to strength. I'd like to have 9 by September because we're going to have quite a lot to do. So if there are folks who occur to you as being appropriate for this committee, encourage them to apply. Let Mary or I know that they are applying. If anybody wants to talk about it, please. I'm happy to discuss it with anybody. Dan Evans, who I suppose de facto chairs that committee, as an excellent conception of who belongs on the advisory committee, since our only currency is sort of our intellectual integrity, because we have no authority. It's important to get people who come on who have broad perspective on the town and aren't, he'll say it out loud, who aren't driven by sort of a single issue or a single agenda, which I think our constituents for the last 2 years have been a really good example of that. So always be closing, try and find some people. So the first item on our agenda are the fiscal year 23 year-end budget transfers, review, and approve. So is that that's a Jennifer thing, I suspect, or possibly a Chris thing? One of you take it away. We're at your service.
Sure. I can. I presented to the board. Chris, did you want me to present to the advisory committee?
Please.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with the transfers.
Please do.
That's not working. Wait a minute. There we go. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So as you know, or if you don't know, a few years ago under the Municipal Modernization Act, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. A piece of legislation that was passed that allows us to transfer money at the end of the fiscal year. I think it's the last 60 days by a vote of the board and advisory or finance committee. So we can transfer money, makes it a little bit easier for us to balance our budgets where we might find shortages, or it's not always a reserve fund transfer. And so the town of Cohasset has been doing this for a number of years. And so these are the transfers that I'm requesting for the advisory committee to consider. And I can walk you through those. I've given you a little bit of detail. We have some funds in DPW salaries because we did not hire the engineer this year. And actually it was taken out of the FY24 budget. So we're using that to supplement the shortage in the transfer station for the salaries and expenses. This transfer station had a large overage this year due to the escalation in gas prices. Also, we did have a driver that worked for us at one point hauling, and then he didn't, he left and we couldn't find somebody, so we had to contract that out. And then there was increased contract costs. So you will see probably something in the fall that we would come to you to supplement the FY24 transfer station budget. So we needed to make that budget whole. Also assessor salaries, there's an excess in assessor salaries. The assistant assessor left and we didn't hire another assistant assessor right away. So we're supplementing that with the finance salaries with Don Pyatt left, I took over. And also they were contracting out with Don Pyatt's auditor to fill in the gap until I started. And so there's an overage there in finance salaries. And when I had the assistant in my office leave, we hired somebody right away. So that there really wasn't any room there. The treasurer collector salaries, there's been turnover there so that we've had an excess of salaries and we're transferring that to town manager salaries and town manager expenses. And there was there's money left over in the fire expense budget, so we're going to transfer that over to the police salaries. Veteran services, there's excess there. We need to transfer that over to the harbor master's budget because there's been, you know, the smaller shortages there. And then the health insurance, we have a turn back in health insurance. And so we're supplementing, and you probably have seen these in the past, legal expenses, unemployment, Medicare tax, DPW expenses. And let me explain the DPW expenses for a minute. We did have an issue with a pipe falling off. I think it was stormwater, and we had to, and it was in the water. We had to take that out and rebuild that, and that was 78,000. And so they did that a couple months ago. We were actually going to come to the advisory committee for a reserve fund transfer. It was probably even sent out, but then we couldn't get a quorum, and we had money in the budget. So this is how we decided to deal with that. And then there's more transfer station expenses that we had to supplement. The select board expense budget needed some assistance. The snow and ice budget was 15,000 in the red. We had to supplement that, and then library expenses were short. So that's what we're requesting to transfer the money from and to, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, Fran?
Snow and ice, we had an overage of $15,000 over what was
Yeah. but
budgeted.
I can look up the budgeted number. I think it's, I don't know, let me look it
Only
up.
one. I think our budget number is like 150 a year.
Is it? Yeah, I have to, I
I
will
don't think we
say,
had over 4 inches of snow the whole winter. I
well,
don't understand how they went over.
That's true, Fran. That's it. They salted a lot. They were out doing a lot of salting.
right,
And the good news is that because the salt dome is larger, they actually bought more and stored it up there. So we have money, we have stuff set away for next year. You know, they did stock up the shed. So plus, one of the things that Jennifer mentioned at the meeting last night.
So
we
this 15 grand is accounts for some extra salt that we purchased in anticipation of further use.
well, there's a couple of different, that's one of them. So another is that we also, in order to get private contractors, we had to give them all, if they signed on with us and were available, we gave them a bonus at the end of the year, regardless of how many storms there were, because we had to get them online. So it wasn't a lot of money, but you know, every town is doing that. We're all dead. The state was paying some crazy numbers. So
Yeah.
some towns were giving, I think, multiple $1,000 bonuses just for being available. So it costs more than it used to just to have the basic crews available, because it's harder and harder to get snowplow crews.
Yeah.
You want to do some extra, earn some extra money, Fran, put a plow in your truck and we can hire.
Been there, done that. Don't do it anymore.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, I believe that most of these guys, whether we give them a bonus or not, when it snows and they're sitting home and they got a truck with a plow on it, they'll be available to plow. So anyhow, that's another story. Okay.
Great. Diane?
Carl about that.
Yeah, just a couple of questions, and Jennifer, you've sort of addressed it a little bit, which is how, because some of the departments that were short, and I know a lot of the the attrition that happened in some of the departments make up for that, but how is this going to impact the FY24 budget? Because I mean, salaries are typically the most predictable part of your budget.
yeah, you know, good question. I know that we'll have to supplement the transfer station budget. We might have to supplement the town manager's salaries a little bit because of the greeters that we have. The 2 greeters at the door. That's really what that 28,000 is. You know, police, it's always hard to tell. I will tell you though, I think we're on the verge of hiring 3 police officers, so that will definitely help the overtime. But you can never tell with like police and fire, depending on if people are going out on LOD and some of the issues that public safety has. You know, you might have to supplement that in FY24. Although I did increase the police overtime in FY24. When I presented the FY24 budget, because it is, you know, traditionally short. Legal, as you know, the budget is really difficult to put together because you only can raise the revenue by 2.5%, and the fixed costs are difficult to deal with. We had the 8% health insurance. So, you know, hopefully our contracts are all settled with the unions, so the legal expenses hopefully won't be as high next year. Because you know, a lot that is labor, and we did increase the Medicare tax in the budget in FY24. It will have to supplement, and the other, you know, snow and ice is always, you never know, but I think we're in pretty good shape right now, but there might be some areas that we'll have to supplement. We'll probably supplement the transfer station budget in November because we know that we need to do that.
And then, and I mean this not in any, just generally out of curiosity, the select board expenses of 14,000, is that some kind of engineering, Chris, or things that kind of went out from your office?
So we centralize supplies and stuff, Diane. So I think it really was just that, and
Okay.
and some of like the warrant, for example, cost more to print this year.
Yeah.
And mail.
Yep.
So it was, I don't think it was any one thing, but a
Okay.
few little things here and there. And
Yep.
and I remember we also, because we have the centralized supply stuff. You know, there's always a little thing here or there typically. I mean, some of the stuff we knew that with Jason leaving, we had that supplemental money that we're going to be able to use somewhere else. And we also knew that we had some people coming a little higher, but some people coming in a little lower when we had the change over in salaries. And the real challenge at the transfer station is that we've had a fair amount of turnover. Plus, we used to do a lot of our own hauling, and that's becoming problematic because we don't have people, we have not consistently been able to have people with the licenses to drive the trucks anymore. And the other is that the recycling market has fallen apart again, and we're not making money anymore. We're paying to dispose of pretty much everything, and you know, so recycling isn't free, and we're small, right? So we don't really have any economies of scale anyway. So the transfer station is becoming an operational challenge that I think we're going to have to take a really serious look at.
I was just thinking that, yeah. Study committee.
Can you drop your screen, Jennifer, just so we can see each other a little more easily?
Sure. A minute.
Chris, you got that $28,000 in town manager salaries. Is that what we're paying those young folks that are the greatest downstairs?
Well, they're paid an hourly rate, so that's you know, they're all part-time. So that's basically it. We kept them on this year. We hadn't necessarily intended to, but we decided to keep them.
Do they get any benefits at all?
No. They're all part-time. They're very limited part-time hours, Fran. They all.
I think it's wonderful to have them. I think they do a good job, and I think it's a great confidence builder for them, and it's good for us to be helping them out. I think it's a great thing. I would be happy that we are paying them.
I mean, that's one of the reasons we stretch to keep them, because it really, you know, one of them told me the other day, and she's been there 2 years, and she's really excited. And look, you know, they're excited to greet people.
Yeah, they're great.
I don't know that everyone's always excited to come to the building, as if they're paying their taxes, but they really are. I mean, I went down and said, "Hey, how's everything?" "Oh, it's great." I mean, it's like, you know, if I need a little boost, I go downstairs and say hello, because they're always so excited. So,
Well, I don't know whose idea it was, but it was a good idea. I think we should keep it going.
I can't take any credit for it. It was I mean, it was really Laurel who pushed it and really encouraged us. And then Kim really did a nice job putting it together. Actually, was it Kim or Miriam? I think it was.
We did it during the pandemic.
Yeah, it was Miriam. It was Miriam, I think, who actually helped work with them, and then Kim helped continue to structure it. So Yeah, we'll find some money. Again, that'd be something we need to supplement a little bit too, because I think it's really, it's been valuable just in a general sense for the community. I agree with that. So,
But they just on hourly, they pay up, show up, they get paid and that's it.
yeah, they're hourly. There's no benefits or anything. Yeah,
Okay, thank
I
you.
don't think anything work more than 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
In fact, I know they don't work.
Thank you.
Mary, you had your hand up?
Yeah, real quick, and only if you know the answer in a timely fashion, because I don't want to bog the conversation down. But now that you have the gentleman in the booth at the transfer facility, are you finding that you're recouping some monies that you weren't seeing before because people are actually being stopped if they don't have a sticker?
We're going to do a little deeper dive at the operations in general. So yeah, the short answer is it's better when we're fully staffed, and we were really fully staffed most of the year.
It's been a while. I think it's been a while, probably.
Yeah, it has been a while, and it's been hard, partly because it's the RTF. It's not the most sexy place to work. It's really important, but it's not the most sexy place to work. And you also have to work weekends. I mean, it's, because that's when people drop their stuff off. And I think we have the guy down there who's operating it as the general foreman. I think is a good fresh face, but he's still new. So I think the answer is we have a lot more to do to figure out what's going on, to make sure it's running as efficiently as it can be. It's not even just stickers, right? It's also, it cost us a lot of money this year because the boutique's important. At the same time, there are people dumping stuff in there that just should not have gone in there.
In the trash.
And they just try to, there's a lot of valuable stuff that goes through there, and I understand how important it is. Unfortunately, when people abuse it, it just costs us money. When I say us, I mean the taxpayers, right? Because we have to dispose of it, and we really, to assign someone there full time is problematic. And then we've talked about getting volunteers in there, and it's just been very hard to get that set up. And a few thousand here and a few thousand there, and then with the hauling costs, and then unfortunately the recycling market, we may have to take a look at everything.
Okay, we can review that in the fall. No need to.
That's a good question. No, it's something we're talking about.
The question was already asked. I think it I don't remember by who, but the uptick in legal, I think Jennifer said it was mostly due to Labor Council and the settlement of contracts, which makes perfect sense. And I'm all in favor of paying municipal labor lawyers. I'm all about that.
I think you're conflicted on that.
No, because I'm not getting paid by Cohasset.
No.
I'm in favor of it as a matter of general public policy. But I think, did we settle all 7, if the 7 is the right number, or 9 contracts in fiscal 20? What did we just finish?
Well, we finished most of them, and then the fire one went to JLMC before we finally settled it.
Yeah.
The fire one took a lot more work and a lot more expense.
Yeah, anything that goes anywhere near JLMC does. I guess what I'm suggesting is that,
well, we settled them all at the end.
Once these which is great, and I think I even said that when we talked about the budget on town meeting floor, is that I'm a big creature of the gospel of operation costs or labor costs, and we spend a lot of time talking about spending $50, $5,000 on a piece of equipment, and then we spend $38 million on salaries, which is appropriate. I mean, that's what towns do. They provide services, and you provide services to the people. But the ratio of conversation to dollar is really inverse, which also is natural. But my point is that the very limited point is that since all of these contracts are generally 3-year contracts and they all seem to be in sync with one another, is when you have a contract, when we know we have a contract year coming up, that should probably be projected into the budget. Add another $75,000. The value of contracts that are sound is worth 10, 20, 30 times what the marginal expense in bargaining them correctly is. So that's great. I just think it would be a good idea to keep track of that going forward. That's my 2 cents. Jennifer?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify something. If I said it, I didn't mean to say it. I know that it was higher this year because of Labor Council and settling the contracts. So it should come down a little bit next year, but I can't really speak to what drove the overage, because as you know, we did fund it at town meeting and we're funding it again. Chris really knows what goes through legal. But I don't think I can say that what drove it over was the Labor Council.
You know, like I said, it's what I do, and, you know, contract years are always big, you know, it's the most expensive thing you do on the labor side. You know, you can do, you know, litigate things at the DLR and bargain and deal with grievances and all that kind of drip kind of thing. But if you're sitting down and bargaining multiple contracts, I would absolutely accept the proposition that that's going to be, you're going to have a 3-year wave in your thing. That's all. It's not important. It's not worth any more time, I don't think.
Well,
But
there are some couple pieces of active litigation that are still ongoing that you know, that takes more time. And we've had some more contentious planning and zoning matters than, you know, and that's always been in class. There's always been some of those kicking around, and there still are some like that that are kicking around. And I don't you know, we some of the things that don't appear on the warrant have been a little bit more engaging. That said, we've also taken it. I think there were some things that our new general counsel they've kind of deep dived with some boards in a good way, I think, to help. So that all said, we do need to come back, I hope, to a little bit lower level of expenses this year.
well, I mean, given I'm sorry, I'm stepping on somebody,
No,
but let
no.
me just step quickly and then I'll move on. I think our zoning bylaw committee, you know, generated appropriately a lot of billable time, and they should have. It was complicated stuff, and it was a capable committee, but they relied heavily on, you know, real expert opinion. But given what we're told is the looming set of zoning bylaw proposed changes, you know, that very well may be that much and more. So we'll see. I'm sorry, I heard somebody else start to talk.
I was just gonna ask Chris or Jennifer if they know off the top of their head what our legal budget was last year, whether it's basically the same. Is it like 250?
And I think it was
More?
less than that. We were trying to bring it down
Okay,
unsuccessfully, but
Did you get, let me just look it up real quick. I'm not, you know, unfortunately, I haven't been here that long, so I don't have the numbers off the top of my head.
I want to say it was about 175.
okay.
I-
Well, I mean, I will say, you know, just for perspective, I think when I first got on the select board in 2011, it was,
150.
yeah, it was over $200,000 annually, and that was a long time ago. So I think we're doing well, but I think it definitely is one of those areas that needs to get managed carefully. Yeah.
Anything else on those transfers? Then I suspect we need to vote. That would seem
Just
to
for
be-
the select board did approve these last night unanimously. So
Okay. I suppose the motion would go something like, the advisory committee approves the year-end transfers in the form presented on the year-end transfers spreadsheet, which will attach to the minutes. Is that a sensible motion? Does that work?
So moved.
Grand. So Fran moved, second.
Second,
Mary, any further discussion? Hearing none, vote by roll call. Gina Stino,
Aye.
Fran Collins,
Aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Aye.
Mary McGoldrick.
Aye.
And Rob Hillman is an aye. The motion carries. Yay.
thank you. And again, thank you,
Great.
Jennifer. Appreciate all your work on this.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks very much. We have an agenda item for reserve fund requests, but I understand we don't have any, Chris. Is that an accurate statement?
The reserve fund will, at this point, will dissolve back into the general fund for, hopefully for free cash purposes, so.
Good.
As Jennifer pointed out, we did have a request that was coming to you, but because of timing, it ended up, we just were able to absorb it in the budget. That was the Treats Pond outflow pipe that had to be fixed, so.
Okay, and I seem to recall there were some other potential calls on that money, but that was all resolved as well.
It seems so,
Well, it's one of those speak now or forever hold your peace, and they have no one spoken, so free
Well,
cash
good.
is, Okay, the next item on our agenda is to elect a secretary. Now, I don't want to put my chair's thumb on the scales, but since I was the junior member 5 years ago, the tradition of this committee, as it is of the Supreme Court, is that the junior member is the secretary. That said, I'll take nominations for the post.
Is it possible, because I'm the junior member, right?
That's right.
Is it possible to maybe wait?
Well, here's the moral hazard. First off, you're not going to be the junior member for long. A.
Right, that's my
And
point.
B, let me state that while Ellen created minutes that were remarkable, they were also minutes that looked like they were drafted by Dostoevsky. I mean, they went on at some length. They don't need to. In fact, Patrick was the secretary for a while, and his minutes were, the agenda with some additional words and all the votes recorded, which I think it meets the requirements in OML. I mean, if you really don't want to do it and somebody else wants to step up, that's fine. I'm kind of half joking, kind of half not. Chris?
Well, the audience members said maybe wait a week and then you won't be the junior member anymore. So.
Fair enough. Yeah, and in fact, since these meetings are taped, the urgency of minutes is substantially reduced. So does everybody want to just take a pass on that? And once we have a full committee, just
Yes.
that seems to make sense.
If we, I'll just so I can say, because I know I am a junior member, I am fried. I have like not 30 seconds in my life. So, or else I would be more than happy to do that. I'm happy to get minutes for tonight's meeting, but I also think, Chris, you've heard me say this before. I think this is a committee that I would love to see staffed. And, I know that requires money, but
I'm
anyway.
staffing. I staff it. I'd say Jennifer does too. So we're not.
I know, but it's staffed by somebody that can take minutes. 'Cause
We
I
actually
think a lot of-
do. Not to belabor this, we actually have retained someone who does minutes for a couple of boards now.
Right.
So if it's something, and it's not free. If that's something that you want to do, I can cost it out and we can see if we can't make it work.
We'll see how we do with volunteers. I mean, my attitude about minutes in a world where all these meetings are available on video on demand is that they're a handy summary, but they don't serve the purpose they used to serve. And second, taking a walk through the Cohasset Agenda Center, some of our peer boards are, they're going to go to OML land if they're not, they're a little behind. So we're 2 behind, which we're going to be none behind in a minute. So we can let that, we'll just let that ride. If somebody wants to whip up a set from this, it'll be pretty easy. And we'll go on from there. And I certainly don't want to overburden anybody. I know, people have sort of varying levels of crushing responsibility outside of this. And it's, just having, smart people to prep and be at the meetings is more than satisfactory. So why don't we move on to the approval? I sent out 2 sets of minutes a few more, maybe an hour ago. Did everybody get those? The minutes of 4/6 and the minutes of our meeting shortly before town meeting on the 1st.
Excuse me, Rob,
Yes.
given that Diane will not be able to vote on these, and I know we want to do it in a timely fashion, but since we don't have a quorum, can we vote on, what is the?
Once you have a quorum, a majority can take action. A majority,
Okay.
you don't need a you don't need a quorum plus majority. It's once you have a quorum, you can have a meeting. Once you have a meeting, it's a majority rules. Chris, does that sound right to you?
You're the chairman, so I'm good with that.
Well, I'm a big adherent of Robert's rules, but not the book.
Well, the other aspect is that that a new member is entitled to vote, even though they weren't there,
Yes,
as long as because it's just ratifying the prior action of the committee. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like what are the rule of necessity kind of thing, right? I mean,
And I'm happy to vote because I was actually at both of those meetings and I read the minutes, so.
and yeah, and actually, I think you almost have to, because, well, me and Jean and Mary were present. So, okay, so we have a majority of the 5-member quorum, but yeah, feel free. And I agree with Chris's read. I mean, I think some people have abstained when they weren't at meetings, but I think that that's a matter of conscience rather than a matter of law. So, taking a look at, can I have a motion for the April 26th set of minutes?
So moved.
Mary, a second.
Second,
Fran, comments, corrections?
I will just say in honor of Ellen, she did a rather stupendous job on those because that was a lengthy meeting.
It sure was. Okay, hearing none, we'll vote on the April 26 minutes. Gina Stino,
Aye.
Fran Collins.
aye,
Diane Kennedy,
I,
Mary McGoldrick.
Aye.
Rob Hillman is an aye. They carry. The minutes of May 1st are decidedly more modest. That was a single question meeting that, Patrick had asked a very good question to which we didn't have an answer. So we had a 4-minute, it was I think it was the only live meeting I've ever chaired on this committee. So a motion,
So moved.
Mary, second,
second,
Fran, discussion, hearing none, a vote. Gina Stino,
Aye.
Fran Collins,
aye,
Diane Kennedy,
I,
Mary McGoldrick.
Aye.
And Rob Hillman, I too am an aye. So moving forward. Topics not reasonably anticipated. I did not reasonably anticipate any topics. Oh, I guess in the earlier agenda item, topics for upcoming meetings. I don't see us necessarily meeting until, I mean, I'm hesitant to say we should have our next meeting in early September because things may happen by then. So I was going to ask Chris his thoughts, and I see his hand is up. So Chris.
so I think the select board is going to be seeking a joint executive session with advisory and capital, perhaps the school committee as well, for later this summer. To talk about some moving pieces that involve negotiation for a special town meeting, more as a briefing. So there's no date set, but we're probably talking about late July or early August in preparation for a fairly active fall. And again, Rob has been part of some of these sessions already, and I think the goal is to get the rest of the board in. So either you could do a separate executive session on your own and we can bring in relevant people, or join a larger one. So I think that's out there as a possibility.
I mean, the prospect of those 4 boards meeting is a little chilling, but for the purposes of onboarding presentations so that people don't have to make 4 separate presentations, that might not be such a bad idea, so long as we meet separately and decide who we need to hear further from. Does anybody have any thoughts about that? I mean, maybe I'm all wet, maybe we don't even want to go. All right, well, we'll Fran.
I think it'd be good for us all to hear the same story at the same time, rather than get it in bits and pieces.
I
So
do
think
too.
a joint meeting, even with all those hundreds of participants, I think that's the correct way to go, and we can obviously discuss it at our leisure afterwards.
Yeah, And I assume that everyone would walk in understanding it's primarily for information purposes and that, you know, it would be run as a pretty tight ship. So we'll see. Yeah, if that's going to happen, I think it's important that those boards get informed on these things. They're still very much in cohate. Then, you know, but we're going to have to start dealing with details should there be any. There's also the issue of these, I'm sorry, Chris, were you?
No, I was gonna say the other is that the select board is looking at a special town meeting and a special town election potentially the second week of November. So the conversation right now is for a special town meeting on the 13th of November with an election potentially the 18th. The 18th
Which means, oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
a
Go ahead.
Monday and a Saturday, or earlier that week perhaps, for the election. And that would be to potentially vote on debt exclusion-y type matters. That's, you know, some of which have already been talked about in the spring, right? Fields and courts and roads and sidewalks, school facilities, and potentially other transactions involving public safety over the town hall. So obviously the details of that are still to come. That said, I'm just letting you know that was discussed publicly last night. So I just
Okay, I didn't see that meeting, so I didn't know. Mary, then Diane.
That's really soon. So I guess I'm a little surprised, just because that there's a lot clearly that we all would need to get up to speed on and then socialize with the community. That's all I have.
Diane?
My question was, would that be the only special town meeting in the fall? Because there was at one point a discussion that we would take a special town meeting to manage some of these bigger topics, and then we would have another special town meeting that is like the one we usually have.
no, I think the goal is to have just one.
Great.
And because there's no general election at the local level this year or at the state level, we could go earlier than we normally would be able to. And again, it's either before Thanksgiving or early December. And I also think it's a timing thing. And Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong. I think earlier is just if there's going to be a special purpose stabilization fund, for example. I think having that voted on earlier is kind of important, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it's beneficial. And I think people feel this way is to have the town meeting in November before we set the tax rate. If you start moving it to later November, early December, it can't go on this year's tax rate. It would go on next year's.
Oh, let me jump in real quick and then Diane. The thing that, concerns me, to Mary's point, is that, you take that November date and then you dial it back how far for the requirements of printing and distributing the warrant. And we're talking about committee recommendations rolling out in October sometime, which ain't long. Now, that's one thing, but we have been told in pretty, that there's a pretty strong inclination to bring a whole lot of zoning to special town meeting this fall. For the record, I personally think that it ought to wait for Springtown meeting, not because I buy the argument that special town meeting is not for zoning. I didn't support that position when it was made 2 years ago, and I'm not adopting it now. But if there are going to be these substantial questions, and that will require votes for exclusions potentially, the idea of doing what has been referred to as a whole separate night's worth of zoning, I think needs to get looked at very hard. And I don't know, that's not our lane, but there's a lot of work to be done, and I haven't received, well, let's just carry on. Diane?
Just a couple questions on, one of the reasons we've had a special town meeting in December is because of DOR certifying our previous fiscal year. So Jennifer, do you anticipate that would be a problem or not with the November 13th date?
I did tell the board that you can't expect free cash to be certified by November 13th, although I will try. This is my first year
Right.
closing the books. So I anticipate that it will be, but you know, I can't make any promises.
Yeah, so we would just do that work at annual. Right,
Okay.
free cash certification and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the long-term financial planning is what's driving this town meeting in November.
Okay, and then the other question it just made me think about is, and I forget more things than I ever know. Has the town had a visit from Powers and Sullivan, the town auditor for FY22?
You want
No.
me to take that, Chris, or do you want?
No, the audit's done, but no, we have not gone to file the board.
I personally think that that would probably be a worthwhile presentation sooner rather than later, because I just think it would set kind of the floor for us in terms of understanding the good financial shape the town's in before we start tackling approval of some of the things forthcoming. But that's just my personal opinion.
I just want to if you don't mind, Chris, I just want to
No,
jump
go
in a
ahead.
little bit. You know, I know that the auditors usually do come in and present here, and obviously, if the board wants to have the auditors come in for FY22, absolutely. But I do want to let people know that the audit for the last 2 years has been late, and we've had to ask for extensions with the GFOA. So we're supposed to have everything done by December 31st, so we can get it into the GFOA, so we can get our it's the, you know, annual comprehensive financial report that we get an award for. And they've had to ask for like 2 extensions because GFOA is short-staffed and just the issues that have come up. So it wasn't even really finalized, I think, probably till like April. And I just wanted to let, you know, everybody know that. But it doesn't prohibit, obviously, them coming in and presenting. And then with me jumping in, they didn't, you know, they did a lot of it. They've been doing a lot of the audit and asking for documentation, you know, online. You know, we have a portal that we give that to and have discussions with. So, and they've already started preliminary for FY23. So that's good news. But I just wanted to give you an update on that.
Yeah, and you know, maybe instead of a formal presentation, the management letter gets circulated among the relevant committees. 'Cause I just know that, again, I'm going way back in my history, but we just made it a practice of having the management letter at the very least being presented to the select board.
It's
Because
not
there
a,
were times when that
it's
didn't
not a
happen.
bad idea. I don't think I've seen one, so.
We haven't received a management letter. A lot of
wanna-
times you have to, I know in my experience, because I came from a community that had GFOA, because the comprehensive report, and that's what everybody's super focused on, you actually have to kind of push your auditors to get the management letter. So I can I'll request, obviously, a management letter for them. It's been, as you know, the whole finance staff is new. It's been extremely busy. But I can definitely request a management letter from them.
Yeah,
Okay.
and no pressure. I actually think it will set us up for better conversations later. Yeah.
And we did win the.
Oh, sorry, Chris, then Fran, go ahead.
So we won our 10th award for the finances for 21. We filed for 22, and now we're finishing fiscal year 24. And again, so there really aren't any major comments either, but Diane, just to be clear. So when you remember when I started too, we had this like book of them. So we're down to technical ones, right? I think there's one about, you know, there's been an ongoing hope to adopt a more formalized federal audit package or something. We meet all our standards. So there's no management issues, so that's good. That said, do we have the ACFR or whatever it's called now, Jennifer, in electronic form? Even I don't know if I've seen it.
Do we have, I'm sorry,
Do we have what is it, the ACFR? Is that what I call
Yeah.
it?
that's all, it's all been, I mean, we won't hear from GFOA till the end of the year.
No, but do we have it electronically?
We do have it electronically.
So
You-
I can, if either Jennifer or I'll probably forget, so it'll probably be Jennifer. We'll send out we can just send out a link and I think if it's on the website, we can make sure it's up on the website. And you can just download it from there. It's a fairly big document, so you're all free to take a look at it. It's 100-something pages, isn't it? Something like, isn't it a beast?
Yeah, I think circulating, I've looked at it in the past. If you could circulate a link at some point, that'd be great. So, Fran, you had your hand up?
Yeah, historically, we've had special town meetings in the fall to pick up some housekeeping things that got slipped by or got overlooked for the normal town meeting. And not lately, more and more, we get more and more stuff into that town meeting, which is the town's getting bigger, there's more issues. But I can't, in my life, in my eons here in Cohasset, I can never recall a special election in the fall. So you just kind of caught me flat-footed. What are we going to be voting on in the fall? If this is,
We're going to talk about that in executive session, Fran.
that's what I was expecting. Okay.
Well, some of that, but also, Fran, so what the select board talked about in the spring, before annual town meeting were these special purpose stabilization funds.
Yep.
And those require a affirmative vote of the populace to fund, because you're effectively taxing yourself extra to fund these special funds. So that is certainly part of the conversation. And there's going to have to be a lot more public education, and that was even talked about last time at the select board meeting, about what those are and what they mean and what the tax implications are. So I think it's fair to say that well, Jennifer and I and others will do the very best we can to relax on our summer. For example, we're giving up on Monday mornings every week to do some other work, and we're trying to get a lot of materials together. I think, Fran, that'll help educate folks. That said, this is going to be a little different year. At least that's what the select board is planning. And again, I think these conversations were happening last year in the spring for sure. And I think there's clearly a series of established needs, and the question is going to be, is the town ready to fund them at this point? So more to come, as Rob said. But also, there's other things that we can't talk about publicly that will be talked about publicly, hopefully soon.
Okay, so let's stay tuned for further details then.
Stay tuned for further details. You can stop by anytime you want if you want some of these materials Jennifer can print you out some stuff. We have hard copies of some of that, what a special purpose stabilization fund is. And all that.
Be glad to. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, so stop by.
Okay. So one last question for Chris. We're substantially over time. And that is, with the exception of what we just discussed, plus maybe not all this zoning material, do we have any other non-routine topics that we're anticipating for town meeting, for which members of this committee should start connecting with other town committees to be prepared?
I think this is a lot. I think these special purpose stabilization funds and the major projects are really what's going to loom. And again, none of them are surprised. They're all been talked about publicly. Is there anything else, Jennifer, that I'm forgetting? Is there anything else? I don't think they really need to look at policies necessarily or anything, right? I don't think so, right?
Okay. All right. That's just for administrative concern.
I will tell you, and again, I'm sharing this literally because it passed through my office. There's a public conversation, and a draft appeared in my office of a proposed bylaw to ban single-purpose water bottles. I don't know if that's even a legal topic for a town meeting to pick up, but I'm telling you that it's something that passed through my office this week about that. So there could be a citizen petition that comes out of I don't want to say left field, it's not fair, but an unexpected topic. So it's always possible. And that one is already, I've already seen a draft of a potential article request. So and again, I'd have to talk to council to see if that's even something that towns can.
I just want to jump in that Cape Towns have banned plastic water bottles. My prior community did that and they implemented it. So I just,
Okay.
I'm
Well,
not
there you go.
for council, but I just want to let you know, it's a big topic on the Cape. So,
Well, so
and
there
it
you
has
go.
gone
So-
to town meeting and it has passed town meetings.
So,
passed
On the legal
then they
fees.
rescinded it and then they passed it again, so.
so we're just gonna drive everybody to get a Coca-Cola instead of a bottle of water. Okay, whatever.
No, I'm just, again, I'm just saying that I'm only saying that because it literally passed through the office this week, so it's very possible that you might see that this fall.
Fine. Yeah, I mean, if it's a citizens petition article, we'll have a hearing on it. We'll make a recommendation. That's what we do. That one's, that doesn't, I'm more concerned about 16 amendments to the zoning bylaw that are highly technical and require multiple meetings of the bylaw committee and then us to be able to digest all that.
So
So,
I might recommend that you have your liaison or liaisons to that group, maybe have a chat with the chair.
Yeah.
Because
that's,
I understand the concerns. I mean, I know there's a lot to move on at the same time. I think there's gonna be a healthy conversation about any kind of financial stuff. And, I don't think the warrant will be heavy in terms of length of number of articles, but the topics will be pretty significant. So.
Yeah. okay. Well,
so-
let's, maybe I'll who were the zoning people? Were Patrick and was it you, Mary? Yeah, I'm inclined to take one for the team and take Patrick's slot on that, just because I did follow it very closely the last time around, and one last thing on our agenda item about reorganizing. I am chair until January 1st. And then I'm not. I'll just be a member for the last 6 months of my eligibility. So you guys can all start plotting to see who my successor is going to be now. The palace coup or however it's going to play out. But I will Mary, I'd be happy to work with you and the zoning bylaw committee to try to keep that within a scope we can deal with, because I think it'll probably also, I don't want to predict, but it could be relevant in the spring as well. So is there anything else, or shall we entertain everybody's favorite motion? Hearing none. Anybody want to move to dismiss or adjourn?
So moved.
Diane was first to the post, Jean second.
I'll
So
second.
vote by roll call. Gina Stino,
Aye.
Rand Collins,
All right.
Diane Kennedy,
Aye.
Mary McGoldrick.
Aye.
And I am an aye. So 8:06 and we are out. Thank you.
I love 35-minute meetings. They're awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I'll type the minutes.
thank you, Diane. We'll come up with an equitable solution to that
Thank you.
once we're kind of into the regular swing of things.
Gary, thanks for
Bob,